It's LeBron James. Tom Brady has 6 championships and is rightly considered the GOAT because he is a great quarterback who is the most accomplished. But if you would have swapped out Tom Brady for Aaron Rodgers or a number of quarterbacks like that, Drew Brees, a number of guys, and given them to Belichick for a couple of decades, they would also be the most accomplished. So Brady, I'm not questioning his greatness, obviously not, nor his ability, especially in his prime. He was a great offensive player. Clearly, you could build around even. He made his receivers better. And that's all well and good, but football is a coach's sport, and in no other sport, I think, does a player benefit more from the level of coaching. And Tom Brady had the greatest coach of all time as his guy for 2 straight decades. And so he won 3 MVP awards, right? And LeBron James has won 4. And he's won 4 finals MVPs, as has LeBron James. But LeBron James, I understand basketball is not as coaching dependent anyway, but LeBron James has done it with 3 different franchises. You know, Tom Brady's with the Bucks right now, and, you know, they're 3-2, and they look pretty good. Some people consider them contenders. Let's see what happens, and I know he's very old, though so is LeBron for his sport. LeBron has shown clearly that wherever he goes, they immediately become championship contenders. And by the way, as soon as he leaves, they fall apart. He's done this now in 3 different cities. He shows up, they're no good. Suddenly they're great. When he leaves, suddenly they stink. He goes to a new place, rinse and repeat. He has had a greater influence. Now, Tom Brady, and this is the way it works in the NFL, when you say GOAT, you're not talking about the highest peak they hit. You're really talking about career accomplishment. Well, by that measure, LeBron, along with Kareem, are the GOATs of the NBA. In terms of peak performance, would you consider Tom Brady number 1 or 2 all time, or might there be a couple guys you put ahead of him, like Patrick Mahomes recently or Aaron Rodgers? Because in terms of peak performance, LeBron's right there too with Michael Jordan and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The reason Tom Brady, to some, might be the answer here is because Michael Jordan exists in the NBA, and so it knocks LeBron down a peg. If Michael Jordan existed in the NFL, it would do the same thing to Tom Brady. He doesn't, so Brady's the GOAT. It doesn't make him a bigger, kind of more dominant football player than LeBron's been a basketball player.
Only Max Kellerman would show up on national TV and make an argument for LeBron James, knowing I'm going to make an argument for Tom Brady, but then tell the world why you would say Tom Brady. Thank you very much. But we happen to disagree. Here's the reality of the situation. No disrespect to LeBron James whatsoever, because everything that you echoed about him is absolutely correct about his greatness. Here's what I would tell you, however. I'm going to go with Tom Brady. I'm going to go with Tom Brady because it's the sport of football. Remember, you can control only but so much. Tom Brady can't play defense. He can't play special teams. But LeBron James can play both offense and defense in the sport of basketball. You're comparing apples and oranges, which is a very, very difficult thing to do. Nevertheless, everywhere throughout football over the past decade plus, you've heard folks talking about Tom Brady as the GOAT, primarily due to resume, no doubt, but still talking about him as the GOAT because he was a model of consistency, because he was a leader, because obviously Bill Belichick and his success was attached to Tom Brady just as Tom Brady's success was attached to him. Now, LeBron James never had a coach like Bill Belichick. That's absolutely positively true. And I can't sit there and deny that. But in the same breath, let's remember that when LeBron James went to Miami, D. Wade was already there. They had been in the playoffs. I think their record was like 47-35. It wasn't like they were off the cliff and were complete garbage when LeBron James arrived, if I remember correctly. Then you arrived. Not only did you arrive alone, you arrived with Chris Bosh to join D. Wade in an Eastern Conference that only had the Boston Celtics standing in your way, and they were on the way down because they had been to 2 of the previous 3 NBA Finals. Health had been an issue, and obviously the days of Paul Pierce with KG, Ray Allen, and Rondo were rapidly coming to an end. Then you leave and you go to the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm sorry, you go back to Cleveland, I apologize. But when you go back to Cleveland and you win that championship because of that stimulus package you was given, ultimately, if you recall, Max, you and I both lamented how if you're the leader it's kind of your job to sit up there and ingratiate yourself with dudes to make sure they don't want to jump ship on you the way Kyrie Irving wanted to. That kind of stuff didn't happen to Tom Brady. And then obviously you go to L.A., and we understand that if LeBron James hadn't gotten injured, he would have done even more phenomenal stuff with the Los Angeles Lakers than he already done, because they would have probably made the playoffs last year even without Anthony Davis, and Lord knows what it would have been like this year. So again, I look at that. I look at the 6 Super Bowl championships. I look at the 9 trips to Super Bowls over the course of his 18 years. That's 50% of the time in the National Football League that you went to a Super Bowl, with you being the face of the franchise, the number one target of the opposition, et cetera, et cetera. I look at those things and I can't ignore it. Again, he doesn't compare to LeBron James as an athlete. We understand what LeBron has accomplished has been phenomenal as an individual. The sport of basketball, though, is so different than football. Football is so much more complicated. The fact that Tom Brady pulled that off, I got to give that to Tom Brady.
Well, okay, but really what you're saying is he was part, and a big part, of a team that was able to do something remarkable. Whereas LeBron, it's more directly attributable to LeBron. So you bring up the 9 trips to the Super Bowl. It's impossible in the NFL. It really speaks to Belichick more than anything. LeBron James in 17 years been to 10 finals. And you and I both know it speaks mostly to LeBron James. Now,
let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question real quick, Max. If you recall, no, I'm sorry, I just want to ask you a question, then I'll let you go. Bill Belichick was known because he was a stout defensive coordinator when he had about 2 of those rings before he became head coach, right? What I'm asking you is this. How many years did we lament the state of affairs with his defense, and Tom Brady had to come to the rescue? We can't ignore that, can we?
Sure, Brady, especially with McDaniels, Brady has been awesome. That's why he's in this conversation. Of course I'm not going to ignore that. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.